Hedley Wigmore here for the Practitioner News Network, and we have a breaking story coming to us from British Columbia, Canada. Apparently, investigative interviewers have come across a species of open question thought to have disappeared years ago. They now believe this breath question had not actually become extinct. It had always been around, but had moved to casual conversation, where it had been hiding in plain sight. We now take you to our investigative consultant, Bruce Pitt-Payne, with more on this amazing discovery. Over to you, Bruce. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey folks, I'm John Doe of John Doe Tractors and Graders, Canada's friendly heavy machinery dealership. Do you have a driveway that needs to be lengthened? Do you want to make a road longer? Do you have a path that needs to be dragged on a bit further? If so, we are here for you with our top line graders and other stuff. Call us to make Canada grade again. Thanks, Hedley. Hello again, fellow investigative interviewers. Welcome to another episode of The Practitioner. Today we'll focus on a form of productive question known as the open breath question, named for the fact that it gets people to expand the timeline of their account, the episodic narrative, without mentioning anything, even language choice that had yet to be raised by the interviewee. It is referred to as being productive as it is likely to elicit detail high in quantity and quality without being leading or suggestive. My guess is that you will recognize these breadth questions as we use them often in our personal conversations. In a future episode, we'll look at another type of productive question known as the open depth question that is aimed more at digging into the topics mentioned in the account as opposed to widening the narrative timeline. Open breadth questions are used to stimulate an interviewee to provide more detail after having stopped the information flow at a point where you may believe they may have more to say about the episode, particularly detail related to the action topics, or what we often call the what happened parts of the version. An open breadth question is not meant to probe or excavate a topic that has been raised by the interviewee. Its goal is to motivate her to mention information that had not been divulged to that point. It may help to think of them as grading questions, as they are used to lengthen the information highway as if with a grader as opposed to digging it up with an excavator. They are often used at the end of the initial recall, called a pure version account in Canada, just before you provide a recap, a summary to the interviewee, but they are also used during topic development at times. As mentioned earlier, you have probably used these without even knowing they had a name. Let's look at a few. What happened next? And then what happened? What happened after that? What happened before that? You could even mention a specific point from the account and follow that with a question. An example would be, you said he punched you. What happened next? Or you could say the last words uttered by the witness and silently look at them like this. Kissed you. If you are concerned that the witness might have trouble recalling the episode chronologically, which could happen to people who have experienced trauma, you may change the breadth question to something like, what else happened? An underused but highly effective way to pose an open breadth question is to add silence and gestures to the mix. For example, you could do this. You mentioned that he jumped over a car. Or you could simply use the silence and gesture. Imagine the witness told you he got a threatening call and stopped the account abruptly by saying he hung up the phone. You could simply look at him and make this gesture while not saying a word. Before we end this episode, here's an example of what open breath questions would look like following an episodic narrative account about an assault. Brett, please start at your beginning, wherever that is for you, and tell me everything about this. Sure. Well, I was walking down Main Street, just moving and grooving to the tunes on my iPhone, when this guy lunged at me and took a punch at me, got me right in the ear. Dang, that hurt. Oh, well, yeah. Well, he ran away. Thanks for that. Now, you said he ran away, and then what happened? Well, I lost sight of him in the crowd. I yelled for help, and a woman called the police on her phone. I remember that. What happened next? Well, I sat right down as I was stunned and my ear was really, really ringing. The lady stayed with me until the cops got there. She was really, really nice. The cops got there. Yeah, and they asked me all sorts of questions. Now, it's a bit of a blur because I think I was in shock. Shock. Yeah, well, I mean, I've never had anything like this happen to me before. I still don't know why he did this to me. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention an ambulance came and checked me out. They said they'd take me to the hospital, but I said I'd get my girlfriend to take me later. You said you were walking down the street, moving and a grooving to tunes. What happened before that? Hmm. I was at my local coffee shop, The Nut, with my bud Franklin. Now, I'd been there for about an hour and I left the shop alone because Franklin stayed for another cup of coffee. I went out the door, turned left, and I'd only gone about 25 meters when this happened. Thanks for that detail, Brett. You said he lunged and took a punch at me. Then what happened? Well, he was walking towards me on my left side, so I'm pretty sure he punched me with his right fist, got me square in the left ear. I saw him walking towards me, and this is the weird thing. He was not acting strange, like nothing stood out or warned me. That's the confusing part. Oh, yeah. I had my earbuds in both ears, and that's probably what caused the left lobe to bleed a bit. It fell out, and I haven't been able to find it yet. Thanks for all that detail. I'd like to move on to dig into a few topics you just raised. The first one is the person you called this guy. Folks, this example took us through the account and showed us how to learn more about the action, the what happened, by using several formats of the open breath question. This would have carried us to the point where we could have moved to other objectives such as people, locations, times, and objects that would rely more on what we call open depth or excavation questions that dig into topics raised to that point. Now, I bet most of you have used these open breath questions effectively before knowing they were even a best practice to get people talking more about detail not yet mentioned. Put it in your interview tool belt and practice them before your next interview. They will soon become one of your best friends because they'll get people talking about the actions and conversations, thereby helping you to understand what happened and whether the actus reus and mens rea of an offense had in fact been satisfied. That's all. Cheers.